happy to introduce Wouter Veldhuis from Amsterdam, which is exciting. He's an architect, an urban designer, and a founding partner of Must Urbanism. It's a medium-sized studio for design, research, and consultancy on urban issues. And he advises the Amsterdam City Council on spatial issues from 2011 to 2018. Wouter was head of the master's degree program in urbanism at the Rotterdam Academy of Architecture. He is here to present to us tonight, and then is going to be part of the symposium on racial divide and gender equality divide in Big Town tomorrow that Christina has set up. So please join me in welcoming Wouter to Oregon State.
Thanks for inviting me here with this school. I'm going to tell a story about my way of designing and what I think should be important in designing of cities. So I try to give you guys a kind of insight instead of a kind of promotional Dutch retreat. First, Dutch retreat. This is what you know. This is Rotterdam. This is big funky architecture by offices like OME or the Markthal, successfully done by MVRDV. And to be honest, I hate it. This is what I do. This is my project I did, and I'm proud of it. And I'm going to explain you later why I'm proud of this project. I also did this project, and I'm pretty proud of it. Again, it's a project where people love to live and love to play. And my first idea about a good design is that you at least create spaces where everybody can play. So create cities, create places where from your everyday life you can escape and play. Play, play. These are projects I do, together with my office, and Giacomo, one of my colleagues, is with me. And this is the place where we work. This is the Van Wouwstraat, Amsterdam. And real urban area. I love it to work. And I love being in an urban environment where people have conflicts, fight for space, and try to negotiate all the time with each other. This is the office. We have an office in Amsterdam. We also have an office in Germany, in Cologne. Amsterdam is in the Netherlands, Germany is in Cologne. Which is similar to an office having an office in Baltimore and an office in New York, I think, in the distance, so not that far away. This was the latest team picture I could find on my laptop. This is in Germany, in a coal mine, an open coal mine, where they're still digging for coal because they decided to shut down all the nuclear plants in the country. So due to the gigantic disaster in Japan, they decided the same year to close down all the nuclear plants in Germany. And they're now working on a huge transition for the whole energy production in the country. We are designing on it as well. But meanwhile, they need to reopen old caves to get coal to burn and get electricity. Well, this is the team, part of the team. Approximately 20 people. And this is one of the biggest monsters I ever saw. Incredible. Yeah, we are. Oh, this is great. I didn't lay out it like this, but this is perfect. We are urban designers, and that means not planners. We are designers. And so we don't do big architecture. And you study on an architecture school, and the rest of the world studies architecture. And we meet a lot of architects that do urban design, which is actually just doing big buildings, and a lot of them. That's not urban design. I'm going to try to explain what urban designing is. And that's me. That's an urban designer. And an urban designer works in this case with a commissioner, a mayor, or an alderman, or an investor to discuss the possibilities for development in an area. And in this project, this guy is also looking for people to participate in the project. And what we actually did is that we split up the role of the urban designer and the architect. So we did the urban design. This is an architect, always slightly less formal, and always has black glasses. So you do some serious training because I don't see enough black glasses yet. And always this collartje. And the difference is he makes design for his clients, and we try to compromise all the wishes of the different clients together and suggest optimizations, suggest to shift things, so not only following your own interest but following your shared goal, and that's making a good neighborhood. And then in the end we often do the public space as a designer. We plant trees, we make the roads, and the architect goes with the constructor on the building site. That's when it's up to me, the difference between an architect and an urban designer. So an urban designer creates conditions, and the architect uses the conditions created. I think that's, for me, the most basic difference. So that means that we also don't build in our own designs. We like that others build in our designs because then the designs get better. We think that urban design deserves to serve the public, taking the private into account, and architecture serves the private, taking the public into account. And the facade is then maybe the classical interface between the two worlds. And I think here, especially for America, I think there's a lot to learn about not mixing up public and private too much. Because I think it goes, a lot of times it goes wrong over here. We work on public structures. And in space and time, and I took this picture, it's Naples. And this is one of the oldest streets, I think, in the world. It's, Naples is built as a new town after an earthquake or a volcano or whatever. They decided to build a new town, but it's already something like 3,000 years ago. And somewhere somebody decided to make this street. And for 2,500 years, this street is the guiding principle for the whole city. I love the idea that I make designs like this street, and that I survive decades of architects, centuries of architects, and I create structures that take ages to grow and centuries to develop. And that's what we used to do in the Netherlands as well. So I'll give you a brief overview of the Netherlands. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the country, but it's pretty small. 19 million inhabitants. And it's flat, almost flat. It's a delta, full of marshlands. This is 150 years ago. This, shall I swap to the microphone? Or is it switched off? No, does it work? This is the Netherlands 150 years ago. And you see a country where the cities like Amsterdam, Den Haag, Rotterdam are still almost in a medieval state. The Netherlands missed the Industrial Revolution, so there were no industries. Amsterdam was laid back, easygoing. And then from the 1860s, the country started to develop. And the first thing you see is that they started to cultivate the marshlands. They started to cultivate the dunes, so the sand stops blowing. So we got created 100 years ago, we created forests, and then also the cities started to grow in a modern period, facing First World War, Second World War, and after the Second World War, the country is almost ready for development. You can see a lot of difference over here, still an open sea, and there we construct a dike so we can control the whole delta. And we dug canals, we made train tracks. So we worked something like 100 years on an infrastructure for the whole country. And after 100 years, this structure started to evolve and to grow. And then it goes very fast. So from 1950 to 1980, urban designers exploded the whole network. And all the cities started to develop pretty fast. And in 2010, it's one of the most dense populated areas in the world. It's one of the most vital economies, and actually it's one of the best countries to live. It's a secret, because we don't want everybody to have in our country, but it's definitely one of the best countries there is. It's hard to imagine when you live in America, but it is. The beautiful thing is that the structures are still guiding the structures of the city and the landscape. So it's all engineered, all designed. And when you go back to Napoli, you can also go back to Utrecht, one of the cities. This is a castellum, a Roman castle in the year 200. And the Roman Empire came till here. So the Netherlands was on the border of the Roman Empire. Above was the Frisian, the scary Frisian people, still they are. And down was the Roman Empire. And you see that they made along the Rhine, this is the River Rhine, important river in whole Europe, they made all the little castles to defend the border and to make the trade routes. And this structure, similar to this road in Naples, is really a structure that evolved in the following 2,000 years into an urban structure. So although it's not really built, it's there as a kind of mental line where everything is scattered around. So here, in 1700, Utrecht, the city develops, starts growing, and you see still the Roman line as a guideline for all the development. Train tracks, urban development, all around this. And over here, we're now in present day, there was the old castle. That's the space where the dome is constructed. So although we skipped a lot of different empires since then, the dome is still on the spot where the castellum once was. So if you go far underground in the basement, you find some pillars back. And still, this is the focal point for the whole city. It's the guideline for the height of all the buildings around. It's the highest church tower in the Netherlands, actually. And I think, again, you see how a public structure and infrastructure can guide the development of a city. There are two things about such structures, in my opinion, and that's one, it's physical, but we are also very interested about how the human life settles around it. That's what I call the body and the soul of urbanity. And that's because I grew up over here, in this area. This is a drawing from the 30s, almost 100 years ago. It's the extension plan of Amsterdam to grow to 1 million inhabitants. And it's one of the first big modern master planning at the same time as the Chicago planning made for this. That's not me, eh? iPhones. So in the 30s they designed a new structure for a new city. And in the 50s they start constructing it after the World War. They dug a lake and they start with the layout. And then the structure starts with building roads, building houses, And in 10 years, they built something like 50,000 houses for 120,000 inhabitants. A fast growth, and now it's grown up. And it's one of the new towns of Amsterdam. Everybody celebrates this and disqualifies the people living there, because the people living there are mostly immigrants nowadays, a lot of jobless and low educated people. So everybody celebrates the structure, but disqualifies the people living there. And they blame the structure for it. That's a strange thing. Simple houses, now they're blaming the structure that they create poverty. And I don't agree on that. So I'm already looking in these structures for another 20 years to see what happens. And what you see is that some people understand the structure, others don't. Lifestyles fit or don't. And this lady has a lifestyle that really fits to this kind of structures. She moved away all the fences, opened the gardens to the garden city, enjoying it. People occupying trees in the public space. These are the immigrants. And the funny thing is, it's built and designed for Dutch in the 50s. And the Dutch, original Dutch people don't sit in parks anymore. They all sit at home watching TV. And the funny thing is, the Mediterranean cultures took over the parks. Then everybody says, yeah, but this is horrible because there are too many people in the park and it gets messy. But I think one way or another, it's a kind of rediscovery of the qualities of the parks. Vietnamese lumpia, together with halal products that are bought by Muslims. A market where everybody says it doesn't work. There are a lot of conflicts with immigrants in this area, but still at certain market spots you see they work together, they live together and enjoy the same food. They enjoy the same squares, although this square doesn't look like the square in Siena. I don't know if you know the square in Siena, the Campo. It's a half-round square, very famous. And then there are pillars around it, where the old men hang on like this and watch the kids and the youngsters playing and making love on the foreground. This is exactly the same. Here you see the old people and you're looking at the young ones. So the square is successful in its typology. It simply doesn't look like a nice square in Italy, but it works like a nice square in Italy. And in that way, I think we should look much better how it works than how it looks like. And we scan streets to see how people use the public space, have little chats, say hi to each other, simply having a social life. And then we try to map it. And this is the map, not of the physical city, but this is the map of the lived city, the social city. So where all the events happen. And the funny thing is, the city and the urban designers of the city are doing a lot to make this an attractive street. And the moment we say, but the life is over there, they don't agree. Because it's not designed to be over here. But actually it happens over there. And I think we should be flexible and open for the way people use spaces to adapt to it and change our plans. So my plea for an urban designer is that he creates structures and at the same time is open for adaptations when people start using it. So I don't mind if somebody uses my plan in a different way than meant to. And you can say it's failed, but you can also say it's adapted and transformed into something that people want to use. And I want to show 4 projects, which might be 4 projects about an open city. And the first one is Lakerlopen, a housing area in Eindhoven, the company town of Philips, where all the people from the Philips factories lived. And this is Lakerlopen, beautiful, low-rise area for all the labor working in the factories. And still, it's the blue-collar class living there. A lot of people are jobless nowadays, because Philips moved all the production to China, of course. And the streets look like this. Real, how you say, offensive public space use. So when the soccer games are on, they claim the whole street. You cannot drive by car. People hanging in the front gardens, putting swimming pools on sunny days on the stoep. So they are outgoing, living together, and they are poor but happy, so to say. And the funny thing about this neighborhood is that we got the commission to change it because the statistics are bad. The statistics are jobless, low income, low education, and a lot of French fries menus, and drugs, of course. So the 5 indicators that say this area has to be erased so we can get rid of the problems. Sounds familiar, I think, to what you're doing over here. We're doing it as well. All public housing, affordable public housing. So it's owned by a public housing company. And then they met the inhabitants. And of course, the ones that are the most active ones, and they resisted. So that was a strange moment, that suddenly people said, no, this is our neighborhood, we're proud to be poor, and we want to live here in a better life. And then we came in because the people who want to make the plan said, we want to tear it down and start over again, but if you want to join, then we have to find another way. So we started actually by reading the way they live in the area, understanding what they want. And that's actually maybe not making a sketch or design, but finding guidelines, rules, agree upon that everybody wants to have a bigger house and better green, but that the space is limited. So how we deal with it. And we discussed little models. Can it be like this? Can it be like this? Or can it be like that? And we discussed about housing typologies. Would you like to live like this, or would you like to live like that? And then we end up with 3 concepts. And in the end, we chose all together, with all the people from the neighborhood, the first one. A neighborhood with happy streets. So not a neighborhood with separate neighborhoods, or not a neighborhood with a kind of campus feel, but they wanted to have their own streets back. And, well, I also laugh about this girl over there. She looks so surprised. But everybody was pretty surprised that we can make a design which brings back the existing qualities. So we designed a kind of new framework. And this drawing was a kind of essential drawing in the whole process, not an intellectual scheme with a lot of philosophers quoting, but simply we are going to make this. And the great thing here was that I didn't present the plan, but the people themselves presented the plan to the whole neighborhood. I was only there to listen to the reactions. I was not the expert pushing it through. So you see them all discussing about a very simple and good designed idea. And the major design was, we give back the street as a street, what you like, with trees and a car, but also a lot of space to walk and to enjoy. You need new front gardens. We're going to make them. And the only thing is that we have a lot of cars we have to get rid of. So we moved all the cars to the backyards to make more space for social life in the streets. And in the end, this was the result. We didn't tear down the whole area, but we only tear down the blocks that were technical, too bad to renovate. There was no foundation under the houses. It was built pretty quickly on a muddy old riverbed. So there was an old river going like this. That's exactly where we demolished all the dwellings. And the beautiful effect of it is that there is no building block where the architect can do an autonomous trick. He always has to relate to existing structures. And then you get things like this. So the next level was that an architect came in and the anecdote about the architect selection was again that also the people from the neighborhood were allowed to select the architect. And there were 3 architects pre-selected by the housing corporation. The first architect was a foreign Belgian architect who said, this plan is really horrible. So this plan. I can make a better one. And the people were really looking at this guy from, who do you think you are? It's our plan. So he failed. The second one said, yeah, I'm a brilliant local architect. Don't worry, I will take care of it. That didn't sound trustworthy. And the third one was an architect that said, whoa, this is a clever plan. And second he said, how would you like to live in this area and what kind of houses do you want? So he didn't give solutions, he asked the right questions. And he got the commission immediately. And he was a pretty unexperienced architect for that moment. And he designed, together with us, we were supervising it and he was doing it, the project, which is now already 15 years old, I think. And one of the amazing things in the urban design, to be proud of my part, is that we were able to keep trees. So this is a new street, not existing street, but we really moved between 2 trees, put a lot of effort in designing the street between the trees, so that the trees still are there, so that you not just have a new town, but you have to really live in an old neighborhood. This was pretty important, front gardens with a little wall. And the best thing that happened was that the housing corporation immediately felt ashamed for the existing garden wall and renovated immediately afterwards. So it was, instead of that you felt ashamed that you didn't live in the new part influenced the old part. And this is the best thing ever. I like architecture, which I don't design, but I promote, an architecture that people can attach to. I hate glass architecture. I hate panel architecture. And now the strange thing is I live in a totally glass house, made out of steel. But that's my personal choice. If you're working on mass housing, mass affordable projects, so this is a project of 500, 600 dwellings, you cannot expect that you have 600 families that love to live in a glass box. You have 600 people that want to live in a house that they can change, that they can adapt. You can put an ugly bench and a horrible flower pot. Just enjoying to make the design themselves. Good shed, little light, little details, and very important, a copper water pipe, water hose. So simple details, but very well taken care of. And that's this one as well. This is the best part of the whole design of the architect. The way the old wall molds in the new. I think if you guys are doing this in practice in the future, you are a brilliant architect. Nobody will see it, but everybody will feel it. I think that's and again, also this neighborhood, in the end, we made a new playground. We made a kind of romantic, scenic, small town, little village, with almost Renaissance Italian architecture. And also, look here, it's all affordable housing again. And the architect was so clever to standardize, to make a standard window, a standard roof, a standard door. So depending, it doesn't matter what kind of typology it is, the elements made out of kind of Lego box is always the same. So this element over here is also this one, this window is that one. So you can, as an architect, make a lot of special things if you are able to standardize and industrialize a lot of other products. This, by the way, is a house of 4 floors. The kitchen over here. Living room, kitchen, 3 floors. So there was even money left to make such a strange highlight house. court. We were able to make an alley, which is even in the Netherlands almost impossible nowadays. 6 meters wide. I don't know what is in American sizes. Times 3?
19 feet, 6 inches.
90 feet, 6 inches.
Maybe, I don't know.
The thing is, not enough privacy, not enough daylight, but a lot of atmosphere. And one way or another, we succeeded in making it. The architect made a beautiful housing type, and included a kind of filter of front gardens, small front gardens, and it works. It's a kind of new place where people meet and enjoy living here. And in the end, also these strange kind of hipsters pass by and start to play guitar. So we have the feeling, this is a picture of last year, that now the neighborhood is starting to live. It was also interesting to see how long it took. It took almost 5 years to get nice front gardens. It took almost 10 years to get this. This was a parking lot on the back, and there are too many parking lots designed by us. So people claimed here a few parking lots to make a barbecue and a slide. And I think we failed in that sense. We made too many parking lots. But in the end, I'm so happy that at least the owner of the complex allowed people to claim space and make it themselves in a better way. And I think that's for me the best proof almost of a good project that is able to adapt to changes in the way people live, that these kind of things happen. And even the bricks are not almost, well, not similar, but getting close. So you see that the people try to attempt to adapt to the architect. The second one is a completely different story. And that's about the city of the future. Call it Logistic HUB Amsterdam. I really don't know how things are going here, but Amsterdam, my town, decided to be completely emission-free, so no CO2 anymore, in 2030. And that's very fast. And I'm really wondering if you're going to get there. But we're now working on it very hard. 2022, in 2 years, the center is emission-free. You only can smoke marijuana then, and that's it. Then in 2025, the historic ring is emission-free, and then 30, the whole city. To get there, we have to rethink the logistics of the city completely. And there's another thing happening in the logistics of the city. That is that the world called e-commerce coming in. So we see that you have the traditional business-to-business logistics. But you see more and more this the business-to-consumer logistics, the e-commerce, the Amazons, and a lot of European competitors. That's also part that's going to grow in the near future very fast. So the e-commerce will need a lot of new logistic space. And the other thing is that when the city wants to be emission-free, we have to swap to all electric or other engines. But the idea now is that it's mainly all electric. And that means that the range of these transport systems is not that big anymore. You cannot drive 200 kilometers to deliver your goods here. But it's also not what people want. You want a one-day delivery. You want a good timing of the delivery. So you see more and more companies want to move their city distribution close to the customers. So vehicles getting smaller and closer to the city. And meanwhile, the big hubs getting bigger trucks, international transport. And this is how it looks like. And it looks like stupidity, promotion. But actually, hopefully Chuck can say it's true. 4 years ago, you saw these kinds of things. Never. And nowadays, the city is full with these kind of cargo bikes and small electric cars already moving in and out of the city. So we have to redesign the urban spaces, but we also can redesign the logistics centers. So we're now working on a strategy for the city where you get the new big hubs to get a target of emission-free and also pedestrian and bike-friendly there. And that's a very complex system where everything is connected with everything. And we are lucky to work also on the case where we're going to construct and to build an area like that. And that's the logistic parks in the new town, and that's this part. There's a graveyard, an old industry, nature, and a new area to be developed. And we designed a logistic park where we try to address a lot of different circular flows, how you go, how material goes, water goes, sewage goes, energy goes. And we try to close all the systems, not only on the site, but also in the whole region. And one of the examples is the rainwater. And when we came in here, we had a little chat about the basin over there, which is green over there that's capturing the rainwater from the buildings, but you don't do anything with it. But actually, we do the same, but we try to do something with it. So we are talking here about gigantic logistic centers with gigantic roofs. So you get enormous clean water reservoir impulses when it rains. And it rains a lot in the Netherlands. So we want to create a kind of water park that becomes a kind of park also for the area and for the people working there. And a water park that flows with the seasons. So you get a lot of ecological conditions and a lot of possibilities to create meeting spots for the people working there. And in the end, the framework is that we now design not anymore the buildings, but we are really designing the public space and trying to create a world where the big trucks come in, where the small electrical vehicles go out, and where a lot of people can walk from the graveyards to the nature, or people live here, can let a dog out, or just enjoy. There are beds, there's a bed migration over there, we try to accommodate. And there's also kind of new network of urban farming, where we want to produce, we're going to produce a lot of food for the people working there. So it's still a stupid logistic park, but hopefully we're able, the first phase is going to execute it the next year. Then we hope we can create a logistic park which is also nice to visit in the weekends, or just stroll around and have a sandwich over there, or go to a conference, or just a little theater over there, or swings and playgrounds over there. And hopefully it becomes a part of the whole green network of this edge of the city. Not sure yet if it will work out, but hopefully it will. And the last one I want to show is Startblok. I promised 4 projects. It's just 2. It's a pity.
Surprise.
Yeah. And this project consists out of 2. So, and that's this. We are so lucky that there is a social housing corporation who focuses on young people in the city. So they're building small apartments for people entering the city. Cheap for students or just people that just start or get a job. So that city, Amsterdam, is extremely successful, still is affordable and accessible for everybody. And 8 years ago, with all the troubles in Syria and Iraq, we had a huge immigration to Europe. And the Dutch, both the Dutch, the German government, and the Swedish government were very open for immigrants. So a lot of immigrants came to the Netherlands. And then there was an interesting awareness. And that was that the refugees were always, let's say, stored somewhere in a camp far away in the countrysides. So they can wait for the permit for a year and then can try to find a job which is not there because it's a countryside. And then people started to realize that a lot of people from Syria are people from cities. They are urban. And this housing corporation and also the city of Amsterdam thought, why don't we get the new urbanites in? So we developed together with the housing corporation the Startblok, which is a concept where you build very fast and very cheap units for youngsters and mixed together. So it's a complex inhabited by students, refugees, and young people that want to live their elderly homes. And they are living mixed together on halls of 16 units or 18 units, and they form a community themselves, and they maintain their own space, and like traditional student house. And everybody was very skeptical about it, because the refugees are rapists, that's everybody knows, and the students are all vulnerable girls, so you know what's going to happen. So there was a lot of critique on this project, but the good thing about this project is that we had containers available somewhere in the city that had to be removed. So we were able to remove the containers in 1 month to another spot, and we just jumped them down. We made a quick sketch for it, and it was executed in half a year, the whole project, from the ID till all the licenses and execution. This is a group of the first inhabitants. And then it's about clever casting. So this girl, she was already a proven professional in self-maintenance in another complex. So she was casted to live here. And also for the refugees, they should be single, should be young, so no families. And the trick here was integration works, assimilation works when people have the same lifestyle, when they share all the attitude of starting in a city and becoming part of the city of Amsterdam. So although the block is ugly, we tried to make the cheapest benches ever, and all recycled, by the way, not because of a recycle ideology, but because it was the cheapest thing. The buildings are recycled, and we made little things like a step of 30 centimeters so people can gather, like the Baltimore stoop, where people can gather. And it works like this. That simple is design. And we had a lot of leftover space, so we also gave them space to do whatever they wanted. So they're collecting dirt, waste, they're constructing their own hut. And this is my favorite picture with a Dutch flag. They're definitely not Dutch. Maybe now they are, I'm not sure, but they might be Dutch now, but not at that moment. You're allowed to live here for 5 years, and then you have to move out. So that's part of the deal. So it's always, you cannot settle. We start and block. This was so successful, this project, that we got the commission to do the second one, but then a more professional one that you could design as a part of a new neighborhood going to be developed. And this Startblok is series of pavilions in an area where a lot of urban villas are going to be built. Pretty expensive urban villas. And we designed, planned for the first ones, going to be Startbloks again. Actually these. So 4 over here. Here's going to be a primary school, there a high school, and then one there, and then one there, and there a huge law school. So the whole society on one little spot, except for normal houses. The normal people are going to live there. We carefully designed spaces that are intimate and meanwhile public accessible. And we also carefully designed the way the blocks are oriented and how the layout is of the blocks. So always small halls with something like 16, 18 units together on a hall. They share a collective living room, they share a collective terrace. Again, it's prefab. Again, it's built in 4 months. Very quick. But this time, a little bit on the edge of the technology. So you can build 6 stories high nowadays with this kind of technique. So we have 4 stories, there's also one 6-story one. Then you are depending on one constructor who can do it in the Netherlands. And then you get still a kind of clumsy architecture. But I don't mind actually. Because I'm very happy with these balconies. These balconies. This is after 4 or 5 weeks, I don't know, just opened and somebody discovered already that the balcony is the place where you can hang, how do you call it? The trick here was that you need a fire exit, and the only thing we did is we oversized the fire exit. So it's also a fire exit material, simple metal, but by over-designing it, you get a kind of veranda where the whole group can occupy the outdoor space. And it works after a few weeks already. And this is my favorite picture, Jacques to me. Because you see 2 migrants from somewhere, from Arabic country, and they're repairing a bike. That's the successful project. Integration, check. So imagine that everybody says immigrants don't cycle. That's also a statement. Immigrants do cycle, luckily. And they're enjoying again the little scoop, this simple way, occupying space. And this is a picture I found on Facebook, where they have a block party on the balcony, all together. And this is, these are the people now. And they also have, again, a role in the maintenance of the block. So there's always somebody taking care for keeping it clean, another one for the collective living room. And if you are able to promote yourself, then you get also bonus points and reduction in the rent. And the thing I didn't tell about this block, but is especially interesting over here, is that the commissioner wanted to have temporary housing. So, but it was too expensive to invest in temporary housing for 10 years, and they couldn't keep the rent low. So they needed to expand the life cycle of the temporary housing. So they expanded it to 30 years, but doing that they had to invest in sustainability of the building. So the units are almost energy neutral. The whole block is off-grid and self-supporting in all its needs for energy. That means that the block already is 2050 proof and can be reused the coming 20 years on every spot you want without changing any technical thing. And we've been in these houses. It's very funny because there are huge between all units, huge technical installations, and we thought we got an architectural guide guiding us, living there and showing us how happy he is with the building. And the only thing he did was opening all the technical spaces. Look here, this is interesting. And here we have a machine here, and this is it. And it's complete by the enormous isolation of the block. It's also soundproof. It's highly comfortable. So they have almost no energy bill. The houses are cheap, and they live there for 5 years with saving a lot of money to get a nice start in this city. And I think when it's about designing, of course I would love to design a Markthal or a famous block in Rotterdam like OMEDO's, but you should go to the block of OME and experience how horrible it is and that nobody likes it to live there and to work there. And then I prefer, actually, I'm not claiming that we should do ugly things, but at least I claim that I think that it's more important to create sustainable and enjoyable spaces. And if the building is nice for a magazine, that's then level 3. Thank you. I'm done. Any questions?
I'm really surprised that Gemeente Amsterdam is able to afford non-gas diesel buses. Since 10 years ago, they didn't even pay for new tires.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Yeah. Well, the buses are not. The company is not. It's a private company. Yeah. Well, GVB is a privatized governmental company, but in 5 years the contract comes on the market again, and then the simple need is no diesel anymore, and then this company has to solve it, otherwise they take another one. So it's also change your aanbesteding, contracting. And meanwhile, Schiphol already did it, the airports. So all the buses on the airport that also connect with the city are completely electrical. And also the city transport company is changing the first buses coming year to make the transition. Yeah. On the one hand, Amsterdam is very poor, but on the other hand, we are one of the richest cities because Amsterdam is not all, but a lot of area is city owned. So they simply rent out space to people to live there.
It's like ground renting.
Ground renting, yeah.
And then city owned instead of public owned.
Yeah. So it's city owned, and the good thing is that because the city is very successful nowadays, due to IT, banking, legal, and finance economy, the rents go up very high. So the benefits from the grants are also very high. So that's how they actually earn a lot of money nowadays. So every neighborhood has a huge new library. We have a lot of swimming pools. Parks are beautiful. So one way or another, you see that growing, and growing now with something like 10 to 15,000 inhabitants a year, and that's already for 15 years now. So we expectation is that Amsterdam will be a million city in 10 years or something like that. It brings in a lot of money. And now the discussion is how can we keep the city affordable? Because there's a lot of pressure in the space. Affordable for everybody. And a project like Startblok is an attempt, temporary.
about 30 years.
Yeah.
How far is Startblok, that last project, from like the city center, and is it connected to
Yeah.
the city pretty well? Or?
Well, we worked on a metro for 20 years. It's the most expensive in the world. It's full of failures. But yeah. But it opened last year, and it's just beside the end station of this metro. So you are in actually 5 minutes at Central Station, and in 10 minutes in the central city. So that's it's a small city. So, it's more inhabitants than Baltimore, but I think it's a quarter of the size of Baltimore.
That second project, after you redesigned their, I guess, city, did it raise anything like their income or their education level, or did it pretty much, I guess, enrich the area a little bit more in terms of those things?
Lakerlopen, yeah.
Yeah, they were like happy with the way they wanted it.
Yeah.
Said, let's
Now there's a funny thing about this is one of the few projects with a good evaluation. So they monitored the changes in the area for 10 years, and there was 5 years ago there was a report how effective was the renewal, and the conclusion was the renewal failed because they are still jobless. They still eat French fries, and
live happy a little.
but they live happier and have a low energy bill. So
I guess it's like what you determine what's a failure.
I think I like the slogan designing a city to have a good poor life. So we shouldn't have the illusion that everybody is going to be rich. That's communism. That doesn't work. It's also proven. So we have to accept that the world has differences. So the one thing is that we have to try to make the difference as small as possible. But still there are people with a lot of talent and possibilities, and others with talent and no possibilities. And so we have to expect that the majority of the population has low income. So I think we should take care for them and make proper designs. And the strange thing of the evaluation is that the expectations, the renewal, also helps to lift the social class. That's, I think, not a good goal. I think we should create an environment where they can live happily forever. And of course, not everybody to have a good job and a good education. Yeah. That's not possible. Yeah, it is beyond, and the idea that the physical change of an environment changes the way the people are is, I think, a very strange idea. Of course, there are relations, your environment and how you live, but I don't believe that we as architects and urban designers are that powerful that we can change the way you grow your kids or raise your kids. I think if you look in the neighborhood, it's a little bit more mixed, by the way. There are some owner houses that are bought by people on private owned now. So there's a little bit more mix of income, but in general it's still so-called deprived, problematic area. But they have a nice house. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a, I would say, culture for confronting zoning when it comes to creating conditions in urban design?
Can you repeat your question, please?
I was just asking Christina, it's like, is there a word for zoning in Dutch?
Oh yeah. No.
Right? So what is it like?
We have bestemmingsplan.
So what is it like? I mean, is it like a back and forth between a group of lawyers or groups of people who maintain like the city codes for how things could be changed or what could go where or how many people could be in a certain area?
Yeah. Well, bestemmingsplan is the Dutch way of zoning. But in my opinion, zoning is always a little bit more strategic and abstract. And bestemmingsplan are often very detailed.
Right.
And we don't have the system with what I like very much from cities like New York, that you have also kind of bonus systems. That you can do this and this, but if you want to do more, then you have to do this. That's what I know from the zoning here in the States. And that's an incentive we don't have. And I miss that very much. Because the bestemmingsplan are very inflexible. So it's designed like this, it stays like this. And actually we now have a total new legislation on spatial planning. It's called the environment law, omgevingswet. And now they're trying to move more to zoning. And more into companies and people can negotiate themselves what you can allow. And I think that's also it's a little bit too progressive. Because not everybody is able to express their own needs and to have the right advisors and money and lawyers to defend their own needs. And this new law says everybody can take care for themselves. We don't need to make this bestemmingsplan anymore. So I think we're moving a little bit more to zoning. As far as I know, zoning.
How does that fit like the context of what you showed? Like, you showed all of these new progressive schemes for having people housed.
Yeah.
Right? Like what is the impact of the zoning for those particular projects?
Well, actually, we could do these projects, mainly the Startbloks, by ignoring the bestemmingsplan and already do a preluding on a new, more zoning tactic. It took a lot of free space to act fast and to build fast. Because the procedure for bestemmingsplan takes ages. It's so precise, it's so detailed that the first generation of refugees is already gone before it's finished. So in one sense or another, it's on the edge of illegal development.
On the edge.
Yeah, it's legal, but it's on the edge. And that's pretty Dutch. That you have laws, but you gedogen, we call it.
Sounds fun. Sounds powerful. Really is.
Yeah, but we do it for the good. And that's, and in a lot of other societies you see that it's used for the bad. So one way or another, and there's a discussion, for example, about tourism in the city now.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of trouble with tourism.
But
It's really
it's like from this lecture what I'm gathering is that, zoning does have those effects on people and on like, those political things.
Yeah.
But, I mean, in the design space, in the design world, it's kind of like an impetus that creates a lot of friction.
Yeah.
What I see is like from your work, you're kind of free of that.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is that like?
Yeah, well, we create, in the end, recreate the conditions. So we create the zoning. So we always start in an area where there's no zoning yet.
No zoning yet.
Or the zoning has been revised, changed. So that's urban design actually. So my problem is that I'm in favor for a kind of liberal way of zoning, so that you give space to architects and developers to develop in the future. And the tendency is that the lawmakers and also the financial guys make a kind of shrinking plan where you can only design the plan that's designed already and no other one. And then you're in the situation you are. Now, no move, you cannot do anything.
Question that the immigrants are for 5 years and then they need to leave. How old is it?
How old it is?
Yeah.
The first one is
The first one
is 25 years old.
So how is there a statistic that?
The project is 4 years old.
Okay, so we don't know
But
yet.
we reused the units of 20 years
And
old.
you made a new concept. Yeah, no, the new concept, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know. We don't have any statistics on how these immigrants have been integrated into the Dutch society.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, we do.
Yeah, because it's the funny thing also when we visited the other block is that because it's mixed with students,
Yeah.
there's always a student studying statistics, or
Okay.
a student studying social
How
geography,
ending.
or students studying filmmakers. So we have already a very good documentary on the successes and failures. So it's a very honest
Already comes
documentary.
documentary.
And there was one hall where it exploded completely. It failed completely. So there was no chemistry with the people. Yeah, people. Yeah. The project is very well documented.
So-
And it actually is very strange. It won a prize in Europe, United Nations prize.
Wow. Yeah, well, I was about to say, do you think that they are creating a subculture therefore? Like they are not anymore Syrians, they are not yet Dutch, but they are Moroccan, Syrian, Nigerian, you know, like is that, do you think that is a subculture or?
No, the strange thing is, I don't, more and more, I don't feel at home anymore in my own city. And that's not because it's not a nice city, but what's happening is that it's becoming America in its population. My city was Dutch. Nowadays, zeker Osdorp, my neighborhood. But nowadays, the city is becoming international.
Yeah.
So actually, these guys entering the Startblok fit better in the future city than I do.
Okay. So in fact, it's not a subculture, it's a multiculture.
Yeah, Jacques is part of it.
Yeah.
In a lot of places, I cannot order coffee in Dutch anymore.
No.
It's horrible. Yeah.
Can you order in English?
Yeah.
That's good for
They go like,
No, it's
oh, they're already
They are
thinking.
planning.
These two guys.
Jacques is. The only thing is, if you want to work in this profession, you still need to speak Dutch. Because you work with contractors, they speak Dutch. You work with neighborhoods, people live there, they speak Dutch. So Jacques speaks Dutch as well. And actually, it's great to learn Dutch. No, but it shocks me how international and how quick and how fast it goes. So there are even our primary schools where the majority of the kids speak English in class.
As long as I can order coffee, I'll be fine learning Dutch.
Yeah, coffee is coffee. Coffee.
Yeah, but with the coffee, I can learn Dutch quickly.
Also, welcome. There are a lot of things that you can learn very fast.
Yeah.
Maybe the slumming plan is a little different than zoning, but yeah.
No, I just think because we need so many people, everybody is absorbed in half a year.
Yeah.
You're really adapted to the city. In that sense, what I think how New York was 100 years ago, that everybody got there just to start a new life. It's actually, in my opinion, now happening in a city like Amsterdam. And the differences are big. So it's not Den Haag. It's definitely not Utrecht. It's everybody moved to Amsterdam. And Amsterdam, it's a very small world city. Suddenly. Very strange. And I'm afraid that the moment the economy goes down,
It's going to
everybody's gone.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with like the book Dark Article, but in that whole thing, there's like a thesis about whether or not the universe is flat
Yeah.
like growing to level up, open, just exponentially expanding,
Yeah.
or close, like it went and had a bang and then asymptotically it's going to close again. I don't know. Yeah, it's looking at the lecture, I kind of gathered like, well, what about like the state of urban development and all of the cultural happenings? Is there like an opening of this where it's going to continue to grow? Everyone from every corner of the globe is going to just keep coming and coming and coming, and the rate of growth is just going to keep going. Is it going to level off or is it going to close? And that kind of impacts like, the urban, growth and culture and how quickly or the probability of it changing or staying the same.
Definitely. For example, the discussion about Schiphol, the airport, which is one of the biggest of Europe, is of course one of the engines of the success of Amsterdam. There is more and more discussion about if this airport should have a future. In general, of course, if airplanes have a future. But the airport is growing so fast, and the pollution, the noise is getting so massive. And also the proofs how bad it is for their health. They did some research in primary schools around the airport. And the results are shocking. About metal pollution in the brains of kids. There is change on the horizon. If it becomes dominant, then the question is, if we get off grid in that sense, is it still an attractive place to live a life like you guys do? Italian, Dutch, American, fly over the world. That lifestyle is needed for success like the city of Amsterdam.
Well, you gotta get there before it stops.
Yeah, you better settle there and
Before it stops.
But we are also looking at, with like Oslo is a phenomenon, or Copenhagen, Oslo more, where there's almost the entire center of the city is being blocked by cars, right? So we are also looking at that model.
It's not true. That's a myth. The truth is that in the last 20 years, with all the gas revenues, they built a complete underground highway system. So they simply drilled complete highways under the whole historical city.
In Oslo?
Oslo, yeah. And also, Norway is one of the most auto-minded countries anyway. But the only thing they did is they're all electric.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly. But they do stimulate the use of electric cars.
Yeah, everybody has an electric car. And that's because of the luxury of the endless energy in this country.
But making sustainability a trend can work. Making Amsterdam the first city that cannot be reached by airplane could be, something attractive. Could be something slow motion for some cruising to the Netherlands, like rental.
No, but
by boat. I wouldn't touch the subject. No cruising.
No, but we work now also in a neighborhood where a lot of very really low income classes live, and they completely depend on cars to get their money. So they work somewhere in the harbor, somewhere behind the airport. There's no public transport over there, so they need cars, and they live together with all the kids. They all bring in money, a little bit of money. So they have 3-4 cars. We're going to tear down their houses, and we're going to rebuild new houses for them. Very generous. You will get new houses. Oh yeah, but we changed to a green city, so you don't have cars anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we have to reinforce public transportation, but the one that brings them to work.
Yeah, but that's a change in 50 years, and they move now. So the strange thing now is that this green movement results in segregation of green thinking people, happy on bikes, laptoping, coffee minded, and another group that works day and night to earn some money and move over to a city where they can park the car in front of the door. Otherwise, so that's something I'm struggling with actually.
So is my question before or huh?
The coffee's really good. Nice and regular.
Well, I remember, I think that Ryan asked you that neighborhood, how far is from the center of the city? And my answer would have been, when you said like we need to make cities accessible or something, or affordable to everybody. I think that the affordability of the city is in its infrastructure. If you have good public transportation, then the city is affordable because even if you live 15 kilometers, but it's you can reach it in 10 minutes. But
Remember that public transportation in the Netherlands is not cheap.
no, flat. Yeah, it's true.